Okay, let's get going. How about that? Welcome. Happy Latinx Heritage Month. Happy Monday. One of those is decidedly more celebratory than the others, I know. I'm really excited to be here for this installment of Conversation with Leaders. My name is Renee Kamiko Hassan, she, her, corporate compliance and the Diversity Council, which is how I came to be here facilitating this series, this installment of the series. We have with us today Carlos Maceda, who is our chief supply chain officer. And I could give you a lengthy bio, but we're going to go straight to the source. Carlos, tell us all about yourself.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me. I greatly appreciate it. Use place. And so that means we contract from the linen that is used and the services that provide the linen, to the implants that are used in neurosurgery, to language lines, to the office supplies, to the computers that we purchase, although a lot of the IT stuff is done by IT and construction is done by planning, development, and construction, but everything else in between, we're responsible for. So obviously during the pandemic, it was very challenging because the entire team had to source through the world to go find the supplies that we needed. But in normal times, our job is to coordinate all those contracts and also try to find things at the most efficient and cost-effective manner possible. So we're really charged with trying to save the organization money. When you look at the fact that we are about a $7 billion organization and we cut checks out to about $3 billion, we cut checks out in, right? And so the way I always try to tell my staff is, for everything that we save, it's a job that we have the opportunity to save, because expenses can only be cut back either by the reduction of the goods that we buy or our labor costs. Those are the only two things, right? Obviously the third one is revenue enhancement, but from an expense perspective, it's either the cost of the things that we buy or the usage is lower, or staff. So we take that very seriously, and we feel like that's something that is very important to us. So that's supply chain in a nutshell. Obviously, there's a lot of departments within there. There's a lot of variations with it, and no matter whether the staff works in receiving or they work in procurement, they're just as important to that equation, just because of the fact that, again, we can get a great price for something, but if it doesn't get up to the floors of where they need it, then it doesn't really matter. So everybody's just as important in the process. A little bit about me. I am of Cuban descent. My parents left Cuba in the late 60s. They lived in Spain for 5 years. I was born there. I came here when I was a year old, so I was raised here in the States, and in a very strong Cuban community in Union City, New Jersey. At that time, it was the second largest Cuban community after Miami, and so all my life growing up, I grew up. I graduated from a high school, about 400 kids. I think about 380 of them were Cuban. So it was a very tight-knit community. From high school, I went into the military. And when I got out of the military, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I sent my resume to about 150 places. Inglewood Hospital called me. They had an inventory position because I did supply chain in the military. It was paying like $6 an hour at the time. And I think that's what the minimum wage was. I took the job, and I was very fortunate to find a gentleman who was my boss, who kind of took me under his wing and started teaching me materials. At the time, it was called materials management. And then I got the bug. I went to school. I was working full time, so it took me 8.5 years to get my undergrad, because I was working at night. I was going to school at night, taking classes at night. And then once I graduated from my undergrad, I went straight into my master's, and that was every Saturday from 9 to 5 for 2 years. And so it took me about 11.5 years, by all said and done, to get my degrees. And in the interim of that, I went to every single class that I could take about materials or leadership. Um, I joined quite a few organizations. I was on the board of American College of Healthcare Executives chapter in New Jersey. I took my fellowship program. And so I say all of that to just kind of start intertwining that, you know, the reason why I'm in the position that I'm in is not necessarily because I'm the smartest or the best. It really is because um, I invested in the time to get to where I am. And I think that for anybody who's coming up in leadership, I think that's one of the most important things that I can convey to anyone is you have to invest in yourself, because nobody else will, right? I mean, somebody will, somebody might. I don't want to be, I don't want to sound harsh, but at the end of the day, you're your biggest advocate, and you need to be able to invest in yourself. And so anybody can achieve what I've achieved. It's just a matter of putting in that hard work and putting in that time and that effort. Um, when I was growing up, all of these classes, I went to all of these, you know, any of these presentations, I went to all of them because there was you never know what type of nugget you could pick up. And so it was really critical for me to be able to just constantly learn. Um, Growing up as an immigrant, I was behind the eight ball. My father worked in a factory. My mom worked from home sewing, because they wanted somebody to be home so that we wouldn't be latchkey kids. And so I had nobody in my circle. So I said I was in a really tight knit Cuban community. That's great, but everybody was immigrants. There was nobody that had gone to school here. There was nobody that knew how the U.S. worked. And so um, it took a long time for me to feel comfortable. When I started working, I'll tell you a quick story. I've told this story before in other places, but I went to get a suit when I got my job at Inglewood Hospital, and I bought a purple suit, and I thought it was a bad purple suit. It really, I mean, for me, I mean, it was bad. It really was. Um, but I found out, a couple of months later that people were laughing behind my back because, obviously a purple suit is not the traditional professional attire. And so, I found out later on that people were calling me Barney and making fun of me. Um, and so, there was a lot of those situations and a lot of hard knocks that way that it took me a long time to balance. Um, and that creates scars. So, I mean, to this day, um, I I'm a little gun shy of mixing my culture and work just because of that. So it's still those are things that still resonate with me to this day. But I mean, I say all of that just to say that it's you can't let yourself um, y- you're gonna hit roadblocks, and you just got to keep going on. Um, but yeah, that's kind of my story. It's a story of um, a lot of hard work, um, a lot of perseverance, and a lot of trial and error. And so to this day, I'm still learning.
Wow. Wow. I love purple. I'm just lots of wow. Interesting comment about mixing work and culture. That said, let's take it back to your day to day. What is a day or a week in the life? Like what does your day look like? Not so much your department, but yours. If I took on your job tomorrow, which won't happen, but if I did, what would that look like?
Um, so my job is really to make sure that the projects that we're working on are moving. Um, I have a lot of conversations with senior leadership. My day is talking to the Beth Olivers, the David Riches, the Pat Lambs of the world, um, of just where we are with certain projects, where we are on certain items of that are difficult to get. Um, but yeah, my day is really making sure that we're moving along in the projects that we're moving on. And so that has been a little bit challenging for me in the sense of I'm used to being the one that actually does the work. And so kind of backing that up and just letting the staff um, do their jobs, and me kind of just guiding and making sure that everybody's doing what they're supposed to do is sometimes a little bit challenging, but I've been very fortunate to have some key people that are doing an amazing job. So I'm very fortunate that way.
Interesting. So it's Latinx Heritage Month, and a lot of people check off Latinx on the demographic, forms that they have, but the breadth of that is huge. There's so much diversity within this diverse group. So I'm curious to know, not so much from Spain, perhaps not many memories there, but your experience just growing up in a very tight-knit community, expanding beyond that community. How do you celebrate? What does this month look like for you?
It's interesting. I've never done anything special for Hispanic Heritage Month, except when I do remember when I was younger, when I was in the military. And so again, I come out of a very tight knit community, and my first base that I was stationed in was in Korea, and we did a Hispanic Heritage event there, and it was a little jarring to that was my first experience of understanding how different all of our cultures are. Because there was this woman that we were talking about. We were going to put a booth together, and everybody had different booths, and it was this event, and we were going to have food, and she was like, well, let's do tacos. And I said, well, not all of us eat tacos, right? And so she was like, well, what about burritos? And I was like, well, not all of us eat burritos. And then she was like, finally, she was like, well, what the hell do you people eat then if you don't eat burritos? And it was like, and it was a little shocking even within, but it's true that we sometimes don't even know within our own our own the bubble of Latinx that we are very, very different from each other, and we have different influences that created all these different countries. And so sometimes it's not easy. It's not easy because people try to lump us all together, and it is very complicated to do that because we are very different, and we come from, and we also come a lot of different shades of color also, and so that's another piece that has to be brought into it, and so that adds a complexity to it because there'll be people that will even ignorance within our own community that it'll be like, well, this person's black, but they're Cuban black, they're not American black, it's not the same thing. And it's like, it just some of the ignorance that goes on, that is just pretty silly sometimes of how we even within countries we separate ourselves.
It seems like a great opportunity to give a shout out to our ERGs, our employee resource groups, because we have OLA, Heritage of, I wrote it down so I wouldn't mess it up, and of course it's lost somewhere, Heritage of Latino Alliance, got it, and a military one. And so there's a place to find all that connective tissue for ourselves, Latinx now, thank you, Sean. A place to find some connective tissue in within Sinai. What is it, your job is to keep everyone moving and to make sure that things are functioning and there's cohesive workflow, but also it sounds like you understand and appreciate fostering everyone bringing their whole selves to work. So what is your approach to leading a diverse team?
Well, I mean, I think that I think you have to respect everyone's culture. And I think that I try to draw back from my experiences of feeling isolated and alone. And many times that I try to make sure that that doesn't happen when it comes to people's culture. I think that if somebody wants to share some of their culture, I think it's important that no matter who you are, you take that time to listen to them, and you get time to understand and appreciate everyone else's culture. So I think definitely give everybody an opportunity in a space to be able to share how much or how little they want when it comes to their culture. When it comes to leadership style, I mean, I think that's the one area that I still learn. I'm still learning every day, and I still sometimes struggle because, you know, my parents, they had to start all over again twice. So my parents, you know, they left Cuba, they went to Spain, they lived there for 5 years. My father actually opened up a store. They were doing pretty good. And then they got the visa to come to the States, and they said, well, we said we were going to raise our kids in the States. And so they left there, which at least was a country that spoke Spanish. And then they came here, and he basically had to work in a factory. And, you know, I've heard the stories of him being ridiculed and laughed at because he didn't understand the language where he worked in the factory. And so, you know, to understand that even though they're your parents, they're still human beings, right? Like, in other words, that two human beings completely were willing to just start all over again for you, and to take on that responsibility is you know, it's a burden. And so you always want to be successful, and you always want to do the best. And so, you know, my parents were very much grab yourself by the bootstraps, life stinks, go get them, go get it. And not everybody has that same mentality. And so I have had to learn that not everybody is as committed or crazy as I am in making sure that things get done. And so that doesn't mean that they don't want to succeed. It shows in a different way, and they get motivated a different way. And so it's taken me a long time to recognize that. And I still struggle with that sometimes, because I truly understand what we do, in the sense of, if we don't have the goods and services that are needed, patients can die. Our employees can get sick. So what we do is extremely critical. And there is no, you know, we don't work in an industry where if we don't get something, you know, like there's a chip manufacturer shortage right now. There's a microchip shortage, right? GM, it's bad, don't get me wrong. And they're losing millions of dollars, yes, because they can't sell as many cars, right? However, if we couldn't get gloves and masks, it's not like we lose revenue, we lose lives. So, and that's, you know, some people might call that over dramatic or whatever, but that's the truth. And so there is no, you can't fail, you can't miss a phone call, you can't not follow up with people. And so it's taken me a while to recognize that everybody gets motivated differently, and that you can't just keep pushing people to go faster and harder. And so that's something that I struggle with still to this day. You know, I remember Don Scanlon used to be our CFO. Don was one of those that would, you know, he'd put all his direct reports together. And obviously Don's direct reports are usually, you know, obviously they were, you know, senior leadership of the team. And he would start the meeting usually with, you know, Medicaid might get cut, we might have less revenue, we might have to have layoffs, everybody's got to, you know, do what they got to do. And you'd look around the room and half the people would get like demoralized by it. And I'd be almost clapping, because that to me was like, that was a pep talk for me. Because like, the worse it gets and the worse it is, the more I'm excited to like, let's go. Like, this is, and then I realized that, again, not everybody gets motivated that way. And so you have to be very careful on how you try to lead everybody. And then at the end of the day, there is no one way to lead people. It's about building relationships with individuals and recognizing that you might have to talk to 6 different people 6 different ways. And I don't always get it right.
Fallible is part of the process. That's an important nugget right there. Dramatic or not, you got me wondering, it's a high stress job. to make sure that we have everything for everyone, including, patients and staff and faculty and everything. So what are some of the ways that you take care of yourself and, get the job done, but also when need be, prioritize your own mental health and your own physical health? And what does that look like for you?
Huh. Yeah, I mean, listen, I try to spend time on the weekends. My wife, we like going for nice drives. My son plays baseball for college, and so like to spend time watching him play. I'm a big baseball fan myself, and so I try to do those types of things. But at the end of the day, it really, I think it's a little too late for me to kind of separate those two things, because I will be watching the baseball game while my laptop's on my lap and sending out emails and doing stuff. So for me, I wouldn't recommend my path to anyone. But I think that I'll say this as you brought it up, and so I'll say this. I hope that the world has changed in the 30 years that I've been at work to the point where people don't have to feel that they have to do it the way I did. But as I said before, being from a background that doesn't know anything about work in this country and not knowing anything about professionalism, I was one of those people that did not know. The first time I went to a business dinner, I didn't know which fork to use. I didn't know I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to act, right? And so that motivated me to recognize that I just had to work harder than everyone else. And you can't turn that off after a while, no matter where you are in your career. And so I hope for the future, for everyone on this call, that has changed somewhat, because for me, looking around the room, I was a director at 26. So when you look around the room and you're the only person of color, it gets really tough. And when you're talking to people and they're talking to you about things that you have absolutely no interest in, someone's talking to you about music, and I'm a child of the 70s, 80s. I could talk to you about hip hop from the 70s, from the 80s all day long, but I couldn't talk to you about anything else. And so there was nothing to be in context with people. And so it was really tough. And that created a sense of a lack of worth. And so for me, the only way that I can make that up was just to work harder. And to this day, I still, that still shows up for me. And so I hope that that's not something that everybody has to do. And I hope that people don't feel that way. And if they do, then, go talk to someone, because that's not a great thing to have, is to have that kind of pressure on yourself that, you have to be the best in the room or you're not going anywhere. So.
Thank you. It's interesting. Old dog, new tricks can be difficult, but just acknowledging that in and of itself is sort of progress, it sounds to me. Mm. So kudos to you for that. Switching gears again, I threw myself off with asking a different question.
Okay.
So Latinx Heritage Month, I think I've mentioned this to you, it gets me excited because it means the calendar's winding down and it'll soon be time for my friends to knock on my door with coquito. And it got me thinking about, I should probably say that we should no coquito on premises. I'm part of compliance. We have a no alcohol policy. That's all really important and you should follow that. But oftentimes I'm excited about coquito. And it got me thinking about the various industriousness of the myriad of cultures that are celebrating this month. And the way that people want to rise up, people want to either pull themselves by their bootstraps or find a different way of going about things. But what are some tips, tricks, and you've already given us a few, but what would you say to someone who's looking to advance, be it a side hustle, be it within Sinai? What is that? Give us some more jewelry, please.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the two things. One is definitely invest in yourself, right? I think I mentioned that before, but I think that's got to be the most important thing. In my past, I've met so many people that have like left either Sinai or didn't come to Sinai or didn't take a job because it was paying $2,000 less. And if you chase the money today, you're going to lose your possibility for the future, right? So, and that's really tough, right? And I get that. And somebody who needs those $2,000 it's hard to tell them not to take it. So I could respect that. However, sometimes you have to sacrifice, and you got to be willing to take that sacrifice so that you can round your resume, round your skills, so that you can take that next job, right? Because you always want to start where you want to end. And so if your end goal is to become a vice president or a president or a COO or own your own company, then you need all the skill sets that go around it. So if you're going to take another job, but you're going to skip the job that's going to teach you some critical skills to get you to that final goal, then you're missing something. And so sometimes you might have to sacrifice a little bit to be able to get to where your end game is. And that sacrifice is real, right? That sacrifice is you might have to drive the car that an older car for a longer period of time. You might not be able to hang out every single weekend. You might not be able to do something because you took a little bit less, right? Now, again, don't get me wrong. I mean, there are plenty of people that they need it because, they need that money. And again, I'm not trying to make it sound like it's so easy, but don't chase necessarily the money and chase the investment. So that would be one. And then the second thing is just be humble and don't think you know it all. Just be able to listen to other people and other people's perspective on how they got to where they got to, and just disseminate that information and try to see how you could use it for yourself and how you can incorporate it. Because I might tell you, this is what I believe, and you might not agree with me 100%, which is fine. That's great. But if today on this call I told you 10 things, even if you don't agree with me on everything, you could take 3 or 4 of them and kind of change it into kind of your own approach so that it works for you. And so if you humble yourself and recognize that anybody who's achieved anything in life obviously has something to offer, you can use it without it feeling like, well, I don't agree with them, or they're telling me that I'm wrong, or whatever it is. Just be able to take a step back and learn from everybody, even bad things, right? Like, I am never going to do that, right? That type of thing. But there's always an opportunity to learn, but you have to be able to be open and receptive to learning. And those are the 2 things that I would share.
A year and a half and I'm still muted. Oh, goodness. All right. What are some things that you look for when you're looking to hire people? What are some skill sets that you're like, you have to have this? You may not know the business. I can teach you that, right? But like what, or maybe you need to know the business. And that's first. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but what are some things that you look for?
Well, and it depends on the position, right? There are some positions that we need certain experiences. But I think that what I'm looking for are people that are smart. I want people that are, in a perfect world, you want to surround yourself with people that are smarter than you. That's what you want. And you don't want to feel a certain kind of way about that. You want to embrace that, because you want to be able to have people bring their own ideas and concepts to it. So experience is important, but you want people that are smart. And I've also learned that the people that are working around me, I need to, because of who I am, I always try to think about whether they're going to work well with me, our personalities and things of that nature. And so I look for those types of things. But definitely, like you said, I'd much rather hire a smart person who is quick on their feet. We could teach them some skills down the road, but common sense, critical thinking, quick to process information, that you can't teach somebody. So those are very critical skills.
It's been a year and a half, especially for for supply chain, and maybe I'm just thinking about the morale. Some people are remote, some people aren't. What are some ways that you keep everyone excited, keep things cohesive, keep morale up?
So we have two very distinct groups. We have the corporate staff that worked at 42nd Street. It's about 60 something people. And then we have the materials management team that works on site. So the corporate staff, what we do is, those people are all remote. And so what we do is we meet once a month via Zoom. We talk. We try to talk about things. I try to talk to people about what movies they've seen and other things of that nature. So we try to keep it light, and we try to, and then we celebrate anniversaries, we celebrate birthdays, and I think that staff has really appreciated being able to work from home, and so that has been very helpful. I try to connect then with the managers of those departments. I meet with them weekly just to kind of get that the temperature of what's going on. And then the same thing on the materials management side. On the materials management side, we've made a couple of changes along the way in the last year and a half. We've promoted some people from within, and I think that what the staff on the materials side likes is that since I've been responsible for the materials team, I'm more at the sites, and I try to meet with them more, and I try to speak to them more, and I think that they recognize that I grew up where they were, and so it's not somebody that doesn't know what they do. So I think that they've appreciated that. And at the end of the day, I think what we try to do the most is to try to treat them with the respect that they deserve. Little things that we on the corporate side or on the professional side take for granted. I mean, having outlets in their break rooms so that they could charge their phones. Like, nobody had thought about stuff like that. Refrigerators that were 30 years old and were breaking. Just little things like that is important to people, right? You think about this staff. This is the staff that needs to bring their lunch. This is the staff that doesn't have extra money to be able to go to the cafeteria and pay for food and things of that nature. And so they shouldn't have to ask for those types of things. And so being able to just treat them with respect and being able to make sure that you treat them the way you want to be treated, I hope that they've appreciated. I mean, I've gotten some good feedback, but I'm sure there's a lot more that we can do.
A very humanistic approach, and you've got me now thinking, have you seen any good movies lately?
What was the last movie I saw? I think Candyman was the last thing I saw. Very good.
Pass. Hard pass.
No.
Scary.
Well, actually, he twisted it around. Well, I mean, Peele does all the
no
social
spoilers
conscious.
for those who are going to see it.
No. But he does social conscious horror movies, and so he twisted Candyman. Not twisted, but he flipped it very different than what the original Candyman was. And so it's very interesting. I mean, yes, it does have some gore in it, absolutely, but it is it's a very poignant for the time. So I would recommend it.
Okay, shout out to everyone who likes scary movies. I'm probably still going to pass Carlos, but thank you. We'll see. We'll see. There's a question that ends the chats for change that I love. They all the chats for change circle around a particular topic. So we're kind of shooting blind a little bit today, but I'm curious, the question is always, what is it that you've learned or unlearned as you've navigated everything that's gone on? It can be really about anything, but there's a lot of change brewing. And as a chief of a department, you're in on some of that. What are some things that you've learned or unlearned or both recently?
I'm going to be careful how I say this. I think that I really do appreciate where Mount Sinai has gone. And, you know, shout out to Sean, who's been in the forefront of this for a long time. But I really appreciate the fact that we can now have earnest conversations about race and about culture and ethnicity. And so I give a lot of credit to it. And for someone who was shell-shocked for a long time and kept my culture completely away from work, it has definitely opened up an opportunity, and it's almost like a sense of relief for me. But at the same time, and this is not particular to Mount Sinai, this is just life in general. I don't know how ready we still are for these conversations. Like, yes, we're saying the right things, but there's still so more to go. And if we really, truly want to change, there's got to be a lot of uncomfortable conversations. And I don't know that we're all ready to do that. And so I still am very careful how I proceed with that because of my personality, because I am, again, my background and who I am very honest, I am very direct. And so I try to be careful still on how I immerse myself into the conversation, because if we truly want to embrace diversity, then we truly have to recognize that what that looks like, and the fact that a Brooks Brothers suit is not diversity, and that's not where everybody comes from. And so are we going to be okay with allowing people to have color outside the lines a little bit, right? Or are we still stuck in our ways so much that we're never going to really be able to embrace what that looks like? Case in point, I've been starting to have conversations with HR and Diane Adams about doing some type of course for the folks in materials management. So materials management, food service, housekeeping, transport, those jobs, the mailroom, those jobs are the lowest. That's the bottom rung. That's the entry level into the hospital, right? Those people come into the organization. They're good paying jobs, not great, but they're good. And it gives them an opportunity to be able to grow from there. Nothing wrong with those jobs, good paying jobs, good, honest living jobs. Those people come in and they've never worked in a professional environment before. They've never worked anywhere in many of those cases. They have GEDs, high school education, and we throw them into the hospital and expect them to start talking to nurses and doctors and other people along the way, and then get mad at the way that they respond or the way that they respond to conflict. And it's like, wait a minute, hold on a second. So you hired somebody that just came off the street, who doesn't know any better, and is handling conflict the way that they handle conflict in their life. And now you want to fire them because you felt that they were disrespectful or that and it's like, wait a minute, hold on a second. We're not helping these people. And so we're starting to have conversations about what that looks like and how do you start training people to be able to work in a different culture and in a different environment, right? Many of these people work 30 years in these jobs. Think about that, right? Think about the fact that we have people here that have worked 30 years as a materials handler. Now, again, if that's what they want and there's nothing wrong with it, and there's nothing to be ashamed of it. But if nobody takes the time to talk to them and give them an opportunity to let them know that they could dream about something bigger, they won't, and they won't think about it, right? And so it's up to us who look like them, who talk like them, that have had the opportunity and the blessing to see the world in a different way, to be able to tap them on the shoulder and go, hey, there's so much more that you could do, right? And so that's what diversity looks like for me, and that's what change looks like for me. And I don't necessarily know that we're, again, not necessarily talking about Mount Sinai, just not sure if we're all ready to really get into those conversations. And so I hope that continues to go, and I hope that I don't, I try to be careful that I don't step on a landmine as I'm trying to maneuver my way through this.
Thank you. Brilliant. Thank you. My family grew up with a lot of those jobs, so I appreciate that. I'm going to open up the floor to questions. If anyone, Elizabeth, was there someone maybe who might want to unmute? Now might be a good time.
What is the best advice someone gave you?
Best advice that someone gave me. The best advice that someone gave me was a blessing and a curse. The best advice that someone ever gave me was my mom. And it was, grab yourself, dust yourself off, and keep pushing. And don't let anybody tell you that you can't achieve anything. But that has also wired me so tight that it has caused me some issues as well. But it's hard. Sometimes people say that, I'm too, I'm wound too tight, right? But at the same time, this job, this career has given me the opportunity to help people. I'm blessed that I could send my parents money every month, that I could, when we have relatives in Cuba that need something, that I could send them, that my kids are in a much better place than they've ever been. And so that motivation, that passion has made me go very far. And I'm very thankful for that. But that also makes you not as patient with other people who are not like you. And that sometimes can be curse also. So that's the best advice that I got was my mom, and a lot of it wasn't necessarily just words; it was actions that they did and how they acted. Um, both my mom and my dad. But yeah, so that's the best advice I got was just, go get it, and no excuses, go get it. So
Um, Hi, this is Layla. Hey, Carlos.
hi.
So, I used to be Carlos's assistant, and um, I think I was at a point in my career. This is to go back to when you asked him about being mentored, and he had said that you had found somebody in his life who did that for him. I had spent a year being his assistant. I hated the job, and I was not great at it. I mean, I've done that before. Sean knows because I was Crystal McNeil's assistant for like a couple of years, but I got to a point that I don't want to do this anymore. And instead of basically telling me, I think this is not a good fit, whatever, he actually moved me from being assistant to being a buyer. And I could never be grateful for that because he gave me something I can do, and I love what I'm doing. I've been doing it for three and a half years now. And I mean, he could have written me off, but he did not. And about 8 months ago, I think in March, I had spoken to him on the phone and I said, do you think I deserve a raise? He said, yes. He said, I think you're working hard. We could definitely do something better for you. He said, speak to your direct supervisor who will do it. I never followed up on it because him saying that I deserved the raise was actually good enough for me, and I never opened up the subject again. I just wanted to say a lot of people see him aggressive, and that's all they see. The year that I worked with him closely, I saw somebody who was really, really great, and he cares about his job. And I don't think I've ever said that publicly. A lot of people at work and my group used to tell me, how could you handle him for a year? And I'm like, you guys don't know. Actually, he's really sweet. Like, not once I asked for a day off, he said no. Not once I came in late, asked me why you late. Yes, he was very demanding by what he wants to be done, and I think that's why he's great at what he's doing. And I think if it wasn't for him being patient with me and giving me a chance, I wouldn't be doing something I really like right now. I just thought I needed to say something.
Thank you, Layla. That's very nice of you.
I think that sort of encapsulates the theme vulnerability, which is, if you believe in Brene Brown, the way to lead. Being a human at the heart of it, that's huge. Are there any other questions? I don't want to take away people's opportunity.
Hello, Renee. I just
Hi.
want to thank
Good
Carlos for absolutely everything he has shared with us today. There hasn't been anything that is really resonates to our days.
Did we lose Carlos?
I think so.
I'm here. No,
Okay.
I'm still here. I just unfortunately my battery just died. So
Okay.
All good.
I think that embracing diversity really takes the willingness to get to know everybody. Quick story. Years ago, I took a diversity class and a test. I was born in Mexico. I've been living, in different countries. I have had the fortune to work with so many people from everywhere in the world, and I got 7 out of 10. So there's a lot of room for all of us to learn and embrace diversity, so I hope we can continue on that panel. It's a great path. Thank you so much for the inspiration.
thank you, Alma. Hello?
Again. Oh, come on. All right. There was a question in the chat for you, Carlos, which is, what are you most proud of, from Anna?
I think what I'm most proud of is what I've been able to give back to my family, and to be able to help other people. That's what I'm most proud of. I mean, my wife and I are big in being able to help people who are not as fortunate as us. You know, to hear from Layla and other people that have, you know, I see them now as directors in other organizations. And I've gotten emails back from people to be like, you know what, you were tough, but you really helped me in my career, and I really appreciate it. That to me is what I'm most proud of.
Fantastic. All right. Well, this has been, I had a little pre-chat with Carlos, but got so much more jewelry and look forward to going through the playback on this, because I took notes even, and they're not enough. There was a lot of jewelry that you've shared, Carlos. So thank you. Again, happy Latinx Heritage Month, everyone. I hope you all have a wonderful Monday. And
Renee, I'm sorry, Patrice has her hand up.
oh, I didn't see it. I'm sorry. Oh, here we go.
Thank you. Oh, hi, I'm Patrice and I work on Carlos's team. And I would just like to say, first of all, Carlos, I'm glad that you accepted the invitation. I actually suggested you as a speaker because I think that you are the epitome of what Latinx success looks like. And as a fellow immigrant from Jamaica, I'm just glad to see that when I came to Mount Sinai, that you were in the leadership position here, because representation matters. And I'm just glad that you've represented us very well. And I'm very happy to work with you.
Well, thanks, Patrice. That's very nice of you. Thank you. Patrice actually runs our diversity program. So she is the manager of supplier diversity for us, as that is an area that's important to both of us and to many others, that we try to grow that spend. Because if you think of the diversity program, it's not just checking off boxes that we have more diversity vendors, but you look at it from the perspective that if you are able to help a small company grow, well, if they grow, then they will hire more people. And when they hire more people, hopefully there'll be people that will get the bug and maybe be an entrepreneur and start their own business, right? And so it is changing, hopefully, our communities one step at a time. And so it's very important to us. And I look forward to that program continuing to grow under Patrice's leadership.
Hey, Carlos, it's Sean. So definitely following the same theme. Thank you for all the work that you do and have done. I know when I see I think we still have Shireen on here, when they had coordinated the prom dress drive, you were one of our biggest supporters on that, and we'll never forget that. You mentioned before.
Well, Sean, before you go any further,
yeah,
right? When are you guys gonna do that again? Because I'll tell you, when Lord and Taylor closed, I'm not gonna lie to you, Lord and Taylor closed, right? I got right now, because of the pandemic, I got about 100 dresses that I bought that I can't give them away anywhere because of the pandemic. But I went to Lord and Taylor's, and they're like evening thing. They were selling dresses at like $70, $50. I got like 100 dresses. So whenever you're ready to do that again, I got you.
Beautiful. The beautiful thing is I see Shireen shaking her head like, yes, we're ready. So definitely, when we are ready, we will reach out.
Okay, cool.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely.
So, yeah, you had mentioned about listening. I think that's so crucial, but rarely used in today's society as far as communicating about many things, right? We have people who have trouble with listening to their leaders. We have leaders who have trouble listening to the people who work for them. And also in diverse topics, we also have people, like you said, who are not ready yet for those tough conversations. What would you recommend to those who are trying to move up as far as how they should learn to listen? Because listening is an art.
So someone who's trying to move up the ladder and might be, if they might not be receptive to listening, is that what the question is?
Right. Because the common theme we all know right now is people listen to respond more than to understand. And it's a behavior that, is learned over time. What's the best way someone can make an approach towards changing that?
The way, I think for me, the way that I've gone about that is I try to put myself in the other person's shoes. And I try to take my own situation and kind of flip the script from their perspective, in the sense of like, so let's say I'm talking to somebody and what they're actually saying, I'm not appreciating what they're saying, right? Instead of flipping out and going crazy, what I try to do is go, wait a minute, hold on a second. I'm misunderstood many times. People don't understand me. People sometimes, because of where they come from, can't relate to me. Maybe I'm doing the same thing here. Let me take an opportunity here to process this information before I'm so quick to speak, right? I'm not the most religious person in the world, but there's something there that it says something like be quick to listen and slow to speak, or something like that, right? And I think that that's really what it comes down to, is just like really try to understand what that other person is saying to you before you respond, because at the end of the day, that's what it comes down to. And you just really got to put yourself in the other person's shoes. That's just my opinion, obviously.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that.
I'm glad to see this took a turn for giving Carlos flowers, because I'm a big fan of giving flowers while people can enjoy them. So that was beautiful. Thank you again. We're at time. I don't want to keep you all. We've got a whole Monday to get through, but we're halfway there. Or at least hope I'm halfway there. I don't know about you guys, but thank you again for being here. Thank you to Carlos for all of the nuggets, as you said, all the nuggets you shared.